Welcome to the video format of the Entrepreneur Lifestyle Podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do subscribe to our podcast using the link below. And now enjoy this interview. Today, I'm here with David, the sales angel, who is an international sales and business coach based in the UK, who is friendly. He's got a no BS approach, and he can increase your sales by 30 to 200% within 30 days. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Looking forward to this.
Amazing. Well, David and I saw each other literally the other day. David's brilliant. I'm so excited to dive into everything that you're doing. So can you just share your story in 60 seconds or less for the audience to get a real feel of who you are and where you've been?
I was a very cheeky kid, had a good upbringing. Everything was great in life. My dad suffered from PTSD as a teenager, set me off the rails, stopped being good at school. I wasn't really allowed into school that much. And went into full-time work until I was 15. Eventually, after running restaurants, did quite well and got bored of everything. And I moved into sales because I didn't have qualifications. I sucked at it, in short. And it ended up having to become something which I realized at a real early stage, that it was a learned skill. It wasn't something that people are born salespeople. I don't think that's true. And so I become a really good student of the game. And then over the space of the years, built more experience, had my own companies, grown teams, built it all, lost it all. And then now I get hired by people to show them the pitfalls and the ways to really maximize their business. So a lot of the time hired as a strategist or as a coach to help business owners in 8 countries, 9 now, just took someone in Saudi Arabia. And help them within their business, find the blind spots and get them to the next level.
Brilliant. So let's kind of start off with the journey into sales. So you're doing sales, you're kind of starting out. And I think there's a lot of people that when they think of sales are like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to seem salesy, I don't want to seem pushy and things like that. What advice do you give to entrepreneurs who need to be able to sell more? They need more clients, but are struggling at the moment. What do you see as one of the biggest downfalls that stop them moving forward?
I think the big thing is people's perspective about stuff anyway. People are not worried about selling. They're worried about rejection. That's what it is. They don't want to be looked at. Oh, you need the business. If you set up a business, you need the business. I mean, I saw a quote the other day and it was like, a business without clients is a fabulous hobby. Like if you're going to have a business, it needs to have money coming in. Now, you've got 2 ways of doing it. I talk about this all the time. I talk about like a plane on the runway. Your business is the plane. You're sat on the runway. It's going to take a certain amount of fuel and effort and energy to get to a speed to take that off the ground. Some people are really good looking and they get a lot of power from that because they get followers and interaction and engagement and they can just prance about looking nice. That's cool. Good luck to you. If you are not someone who has that as a skill set, you need to find another way to grab people's attention by being funny, by being engaging, by being a professional, by having problems that you fix. And if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, or you're in sales or marketing or whatever it is, sales is a bolt-on skill set that people need. And the big problem for a lot of people is they forget that sales is an eroding skill set. If you're not using it, it will erode. It will disappear. So just because you're good at something now, it's like being great at football, right? From you're 14 to you're 25. And at 28, you kick a football. You're not going to kick it as well. It's just obvious. And people feel that sales is just talking. And it's really not. Sales is a lot more than that. Sales is, and I hate saying sales is serving, but to a degree it is. You've got to really be able to work out who are your people you're trying to sell to, why you're trying to sell to them. There's so many parts of this puzzle that people don't navigate. People just do almost a magician moment and they go, ta-da, I'm here, buy from me. And the arrogance of us to think with all the billions of people on the planet, all the products that are out there, and we're like, I'm ready, you can buy from me now. Okay, quick, let me run to you. Like it's not going to happen. And if that does happen for someone, great. But you've got to take a proactive approach. People spend more time planning their yearly holidays than they do on how they're going to generate new business within their business that can pay for the holidays. They want to just stand out the door, open the door. It's not a shop. You don't own Harrods. It's not a newsagent where you're getting people walking past that need your product. You get lost in the mist. You get lost in the fog. So you've got to be proactive. Know who we've got, what we have, how it benefits people, who we want, who we don't want as a client, and then how we're going to walk them through that process so that they enjoy it with the lowest level of resistance you can.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, to enjoy it with the lowest level of resistance. I think it's so easy for us to put up barriers and to stop someone really enjoying that process as they start to be enrolled in our business. One of the biggest objections that people will say they have is price, right? Yeah. Is price a myth? Is it a myth?
No.
Is it
because if
element?
I want to buy a £10 million house, I ain't got the money for that.
Okay.
Right? But price is an objection, right? But price can also be a disqualifier. So there's a massive difference between a disqualifying reason you cannot buy a product or a reason you don't want to buy the product. Now, if it's the fact of, say, for example, we're talking of a car and it's a £30,000 car and you could afford it or you could put it on finance, but you're feeling like it's too expensive. That's because you don't see a high enough level of value. Now, here's the problem with a lot of people in sales. Say you're buying a car for £30,000 and you see £30,000 worth of value. You're probably not going to buy it. What do you want to do? You want to get the price down. So if I see £30,000 worth of value, I want to see a bargain on the table. If I see £32,000 worth of value, I'm probably going to snap it up. But there's a lot of other parts of the puzzle that people come into it. And what a lot of people do, we go, oh, well, yeah, I can't really afford it. And I just say to people all the time, put the money to one side. If money wasn't the issue, would you buy it? Well, if my wife liked it, if my husband liked it, if my business partner liked it. Okay, cool. So imagine the money's not an issue. Your wife said yes, your husband said yes, your business, would you go then? Well, not really sure I'm going to use it. Now what's happening? We're starting to hear where the real objections are. Now, if they don't feel that their partner's going to like it and they're going to give them a load of grief, if they don't think they're going to use it, why would they buy it? Like, I can see the value in a lot of things. I see the values in a spaceship. Would I buy a spaceship? No, because it's not valuable to me. I see the value, but it's not valuable to me. And for a lot of the time out there, people focus on what people are saying, not what people are saying.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And I think what's very important is to really, when someone has an objection, to look at it as a complaint to begin with and actually dive into what is it that they're actually saying? Because it's so easy for us to suddenly move to a different product when maybe they don't understand it and maybe we don't actually realize what is actually stopping them moving forward. So whilst you're on this journey of sales and you're moving things forward, you mentioned that you had it all, you lost it all. Talk to us a little bit about that, because we often hear that entrepreneurs are those that can lose it all and then build it back up again. It's not just a one-hit wonder, but they've started to build it up again. What actually happened?
So I suffered, my dad had PTSD when I was a kid, and that messed me up quite a bit. I was like a teenager, mainly going through that stage of it. You don't really understand much. And I think, and this is for a lot of time, and I say this is more based on men because I'm a man, funnily enough. So women might go through something similar. But as men, if we go back to the caveman times, there's a great book on this, Why Men Lie and Why Women Cry, by Alan and Barbara Pease. And what they talk about in there is that men have a lower requirement of words on a daily basis. We need to talk, say, 1,000 words a day. We're actually all right at that point. Women have a need of about 4,000. Those are rough numbers, but you get the idea. So women have an internal need to talk, to vocalize, to talk about things. And if we go back to prehistoric times, women were around the campfire. Yes, ladies, I said it. It happened. I'm sorry, I didn't build the campfire. So they had to talk more and build relationships up, to build trust and alliances. Because if they suddenly become ill, who'd look after the kids? If their husband suddenly died out hunting the buffalo, they could be ejected out of the village. Men had to shut up. They had to hold that in. You wanted to burp, or you wanted to talk, you wanted to fart, whatever it is. You're out on a hunt, you could lose the deer for that day. And this has been ingrained in us for a long time. We'd come back at the end of the day and we'd fire gaze. We'd sit there silently, just gone, because we've used all the energy in the words. And I think a lot of the time with men, we've never really been, we've not as a generation been brought up in a way that to vocalize or to work out what you think or feel. So I carried a lot of baggage. Now I accept responsibility for all the baggage in my life. Whether it's your fault or not, I believe it's our responsibility to go wherever we are to the next stage. And I carried a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. Now, here's the big thing. If I put a weighted vest onto you now, you know you have a weighted vest on. If you were born with a weighted vest on, you would never know what it was like to not have it. And I think with a lot of things like anxiety and depression, I'm not saying I was depressed as a baby, by the way, but you know what I'm saying? When we come through and we get used to these feelings, you don't know you've really got them. So then you get used to going out and having a beer and, oh, I'm actually have a really good time and I don't have anxiety when I drink. No, it's just part of your brain shut off. And as I built my life up, I countermeasured with illegal substances. I used to drink every day socially, had a great social circle. But then it becomes to the stage where it takes over your life, messes with your mental state, but it doesn't, you don't get a sledgehammer through your head in a night. It chips away 1% here, 1% there. And eventually you're not even the person that you know. But the problem being at this point is if your mindset's not in the right place with depression and anxiety and all the other stuff and addictions, the very thing you're relying on as your radar to guide you, your true north, is completely screwed. So your idea of true north is actually south. So you're going in the wrong direction. You don't even know. You're adamant you're going the right way. And by the time I looked around 2 years later, because in that 2-3 year basis, everything had just collapsed without me really being that aware, I'd lost everything. Business was screwed. Mindset was screwed. And at my worst point, I was laying on a garage floor with a bottles of empty pills and tried to end it. And the information that was coming through my brain was like, it's like having a wonky antenna. I spoke about this on something yesterday, but you know what you should think, but the information just doesn't come through right. And then you're at the stage where you've got to rebuild and you have to start from scratch. And I think the very things that stop some people make other people carry on. I'm blessed to have 2 kids. If I didn't have my kids, I probably wouldn't be here today. They saved my life. Now, in a way, they didn't pump me, but they gave me the reason to carry on. The one more day, the one more day, the one more day. And then it became 1 week and it became 1 year. And over that time, I rebuilt. I had to completely not rely on my North Star because I knew it was wonky. Had to give up the drink and the partying and all the other stuff and rebuild and change your life. And now I look back on it and it's horrific, everything that happened. But I've never been at a better stage in my life, mindset-wise, where I am. And when you lose everything, there's a big FU moment in life where you're like, there's nothing really that can happen now, apart from a staggering illness that you can't control, right? But could take you more away. And there's something freeing when that happens. And you become very grateful in a very internal and optimistic way. And you go, do you know what? I could actually do something here. I could achieve something here. I could leave a real big impact on the world. And now I just have this real zest for life in so many ways, because if you're at the darkest point and anyone's ever been through it, and any guys that are going through this, go to an app called Tether, Tethr. It's a free men's community group. And you really realize there's a lot out there that you can do in the world. And now I'm at the stage where life's not just great, but my mindset's in such a solid place. I now help other people in the same way. I don't run a charity or anything like that, but I purposely outreach to people, but I see the signs that are of me, right? Those signs, the warning signs, because they won't see the warning signs. I didn't see them. And now I do my best to try and help some others come through that without hitting the same rocks I did.
And I think that's amazing, and what a story. And I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I've burned out myself. I lost my father to suicide as well, and obviously he went through a very similar experience, obviously, to what you went through. But my question is that how, if we were to think back, did you manage to make that shift in your mindset where you kind of knew where you thought the North Star was, but it was the South Star? How did you make that switch? Because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that can understand logically what's going on. But as you mentioned, sometimes the information is actually different to how you think. What was it that switched? Was it something that you did? Was it something that said? Did it happen over time? What was it that made that transition for you?
There's 2 things that happened. One, and I don't necessarily know if this is good advice, so don't take this as advice. I literally went to the stage that I committed for the space of the following 6 months. Whatever I wanted to do, I did the opposite. If I didn't want to get up, I got up. If I wanted to get up and couldn't sleep, I'd make myself go to sleep. Right? If I wanted to eat crap, I wouldn't. If I wanted to have a drink, I didn't. If I didn't want to go for a walk, I went out, even if it was in the rain. That had a big dramatic effect because it was weird. That was a really weird. Listen, these stories, a lot of people sugarcoat these big success rocky moments where the tune comes on and they're punching the bag and suddenly, yeah, I feel good. It didn't. Like, it was misery, like absolute undeniable misery. And the only reason I continued with it was because of the kids. And then I would eventually start seeing some progress and things like that. And you come out of the shell and you start living outside of your comfort zone, and doing the opposite of what you wanted to do. And it starts seeing it work. And then you go, oh, really? So actually, yeah, it was, because you start saying about your own North Star, but deep down, you're like, I don't know if it is. And then you're like, oh crap. Yeah, mine was really off. And then there was there's an old fable. Have I got time to tell you? It's very quick. It's like 2 minutes.
Yeah, fable away.
So there's an old fable about a red dot, a feather, not red dot Indian, grandfather and his son, like Cherokee Indians. And they're sat talking, looking at the fire, and they're talking about life. And the grandfather says to the grandson, as you grow up, there's going to be a battle that fights inside of you. There's going to be two wolves, and every single day you'll have a choice. Every single day they'll go to battle. And the grandson says to the grandfather, he's like, well, who wins? And he's like, whichever one that you feed. And the story goes into more detail about the good and the bad wolf. And you've got the good wolf, which is all the great stuff in life we love. And you've got the bad wolf and the pessimism and the bad stuff and the guilt and all the other things that are out there. And here's the problem with our lives. If we have fed every day the bad wolf for 10 years, the bad wolf is not just strong, it is ridiculously used to winning. On the flip side, you haven't fed the good wolf at all. So it's weak, it's frail, its mindset's not right, it doesn't have the belief. So if I suddenly go off and feed the good wolf for a week, everyone can remember this from New Year's Eve, you feed the good wolf for a week, you start going gym, you start eating right, you stop boozing. What happens? Yeah, I'm done. Bad wolf comes back, right? Kicks his ass because he's got that internal strength. And the more we feed the good wolf, we have to feed it every single day. We've got to feed it even when we don't want to. And if you feed the bad wolf, you've got to feed the good wolf twice. And you'll feel like an absolute idiot when you're doing it. And do you know why that is? Because that's the bad wolf trying to get in your head. And a lot of the stuff that we do is we spend years damaging ourselves, decades, with the wrong mindset, with the wrong right belief system, with the wrong morals, whatever it is. And then we sugarcoat a little sprinkle of goodness to the good wolf, but give him a crumb. Go on in, off you go and have a fight. I don't reckon I'm probably ready yet. Yeah, you'll be all right. You've had a crumb.
Yeah.
So the more that we feed the good wolf, the more we do. But here's the thing. The one thing I always took away from it was that bad wolf, I can starve for the next 10 years. But the amount of internal strength like a wily old wolf will have, but in 10 years' time, that thing could use all its energy and jump up and bite me and take me out of the game. So I have to keep the good wolf fed every single day. I have to make sure that I'm doing that. And that was what that one fable was one of the things that I massively put down to saving my life. Because me and my mate used to chat and I isolate myself off for quite a while. And he used to message me, how's a good wolf today? And we used to message each other time. And it was just about, and it was that little reminder every day. And sometimes I'd have forgot because the bad wolf would have snuck up on me and you'd have a bad couple of days. And you're like, it's done it again. And when you take it away from you and you take it to being two wolves, I found it so much easier because then you weren't on it yourself. You weren't beating yourself up. You're like that bloody bad wolf.
Yeah. And I think what's amazing, and I love sharing that story as well, as the disassociation that you can make, where you're not saying it's out of my control. Suddenly it's, the stupid bad wolf.
Yeah.
And I think what's great about it is it offers you an opportunity to be able to take a step back and look at your life and look at it in a very, very different way, but using a metaphor that's contextual and you can actually articulate and understand. And I think that when we look into those habits of, how do I feed the good wolf? How do I really build that up? It makes us think in a different way. And for those listening, it's really understanding how do you make that transition and what are some of the habits, some of the things that you can do on a consistent basis to help you move forward? Because the truth is, our society is literally there that feeds the bad wolf, right? We've got instant gratification. We have all these things that is basically feeding this instant, like this moment where we just want things so quickly, right? And it comes in many forms. That being able to make that distinction, I think, is really, really powerful.
Thanks. I think it really did save a lot for me, and it's something I think will stay with me for forevermore. And even now, someone said something to me once, that happiness is not a permanent location, and it really hit me, because I'm like, yeah, I suppose it's not. Because if we plan out our life now, no one's going to die, never going to get a parking ticket, you're never going to get done for speeding. Something's not going to fall down in the house. A shelf won't fall off. You're not going to buy a TV that's broke, right? Your girlfriend's not going to annoy you. Your husband's not going to be an ass. Your kids aren't going to screw up at school. Really? We're going to live his whole life in his blissful happiness, skipping down the road.
Yes.
That's a naive thing. And anyone who's listening and think that's going to happen, please go, just get checked. Because I think we're all aware that's not going to happen. But then in our life on a day-to-day, on the miniature moments of our day, the second something bad, we're like, right, what the hell? But we know it's going to happen. I talk about bounce back ability all the time. And it's not about the fact of whether bad stuff happens. It's how we can shorten the length, but we stay in that bad place. Like if your missus cheats on you, go be sad. Set a timer. Right, I'm going to go and cry my eyes out. I'm going to watch some stupid movies. I'm going to say I hate girls for a week. And then I'm done. What we do is we have a little bit of sadness every day for the next year, right? A little bit of it, a little bit. And instead of drawing a line in that sand and going, right, and even if you don't want to, you just have to take those steps, because you have to decide, but I'm not going to stay in this place. No one's going to come and save us. And this is the real sad. My friend died literally just over a week ago, 47 from cancer. Awful. And I had a choice the next day. I woke up sad as hell. I'd been crying my eyes out. It was awful. Really, really hit me. I'd known him for like 20 plus years. And we hadn't been that close for the remaining years of his life. And that is what it is. But I started to let guilt myself into not getting up that day, not going out. And I'm like, hang on a minute. He would love nothing more than the opportunity of having to be able to get up, to go and see the sunrise today. And it was pouring with rain, so there wasn't even really a sunrise, right? But to have the ability to walk in the rain, and a lot of the time the problems that we've got, we've put our perspective on them and we've locked them in, and then we pulled them out to make them these massive things as a limiter on what we do with our lives. But a lot of people out there would dream of a lot of, and not for everyone, if you're going for something that bad, I feel for them. But a lot of the problems that we get really annoyed by, but we hold on to for weeks, months, sometimes even years, there weren't really big things that needed to take that much of our time, our energy, our emotion. They stop us making friends. They stop us moving on to new relationships. And the only person that suffers is actually us, right? And that's the sad thing. And I think a lot of the time when we can bounce back quick and we can cut down that length of time we spend in the bad place, the quicker we get back to full speed, not just active, but full speed, it makes a dramatic difference in our lives.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think it's so true when you can let go of those negative things that we're holding on to, because people hold on to them, for way too long. When you draw that line in the sand, it makes a big difference. Now, I'm curious as to how everything that you went through impacts how you're currently living your lifestyle at the moment and how you show up in your business. Like, how do you think that has served you so that you show up in a different way? Like, what are some of the things that you do now that you never did previously?
So my kids spend half the time with me. So when they're not with me, I will typically, I get up at 5:40 every day. Latest I get out of bed 6. That's twice a week, maybe on the weekend or something. Kids aren't with me, I'll get up and go for a walk. Middle of the winter, probably won't. But like this time of year, even if it's raining, I'll whack the waterproof tracksuit on, hat on, and I'll go for a walk. I find that makes a dramatic difference for 2 reasons. One, it's so simple to do and you don't see an immediate result from it. But when you come home, you're alert, you're awake, your mind's been working, your body's all stretched. Like I live by the beach, so I see the sea, like all these little things. Like, this is really interesting. I'll go on a walk in the morning. So this morning I went out like 10 to 6. Time I got back was about 7:30. I reckon I saw 50 people. I reckon 40 of them said hello to me. And it's weird, that time of the day, the people that are all up, it's like everyone's like, oh, morning. Like we choose to get up at that time, which is really bizarre. And that's one thing which I find as a catalyst. I also have a breakdown on my day. I live with whiteboards on an hourly basis, because I realize that activity and productivity are very different things. I think a lot of the time we are spoilt brats and we do what we want to do, not what we need to do. And if we worked in a company, we would act very differently. If I worked in an office, for example, as a sales guy, I'd be tied to my desk for most of the day. I'd make X amount of calls and you outreach to these and you break your day down. For some reason, when people don't work for themselves, oh, I do it for the freedom. Well, you did, but not a freedom to just do less work. You'd had a freedom of choice, a freedom of options, a freedom of results. So I break my day down and I actually allocate time in my day for me. Some days that doesn't happen. But I'll break out and I'll have marked down for an hour on go to the gym, right? Go to town and buy some trainers, buy a tracksuit, whatever it is I want to do. Mainly tracksuits because I live in tracksuits now. And go off and do these things. I took up windsurfing recently. I now say yes to a lot more stuff. And windsurfing gives me anxiety. But I've learned there's only a certain amount of anxiety I can get. It doesn't get past a certain level. You can stay at that level, but once you're at your maximum anxiety level, if you can be brave enough to take a step forward, it doesn't actually get any more because you're at your maximum. If you're hyperventilating, you're freaking out and you can take action in that state, you're really powerful. Like really powerful. So I'm freaked out by being out in the ocean that I can get a cramp and drown. I put a life jacket on. It's pretty simple. But I'm still worried about things below me in the water.
Sure.
But I'm so terrible at windsurfing, well, I'm better now. But when I was so terrible at it, it took all my concentration. So I'd go with such high anxiety. And every time I'd be like, I would walk up to the place where I'd do my lessons. And there would be part of me, but it'd be just like, just turn around and go home. Like, just chill out. And I'm like, North Star doesn't work that well. So we've got to go against it still because it's ingrained now. Go and do it. And every single time I've gone out and done it, without fail, I have come back in. And I'm like, damn, I'm good at windsurfing. Right? Even if I'm not done that great.
Yes.
I was out and I used to look at people on windsurfers and be like, unless they're doing loops, I'm like, oh, looks so boring. Honestly, one of the most freeing things, watching the sunrise. I was out the other week and it was raining. It started to rain. And I'm like, that's great. If I was on the beach looking out, I'd be like, what's that idiot doing? I'm on the windsurfer and I'm like looking at people going, and the whole perspective just changes. And I think a lot of these things now, I did a series of golf lessons the other day. I've been playing golf for like 5 years. Never great. I went and done a 6-week, 1-hour lesson. And I'm like, oh, that's why I've been doing it wrong. And we do this in our lives. We just fumble around thinking this is the way. So bloke, literally, my first golf lesson, he went, yeah, you're holding the club wrong. I'm like, am I? He's like, yeah, try this. Hit it, straight ball. What? Hit it, straight ball. Now am I Tiger Woods? No. But massively improved my game. He's like, let's get a driver out and have a look what you do with that. He goes, no, you need to do this. And I'm like, really? So it started to feel really alien coming up. I was coming back. So I was slicing the ball so much. I'm like, brilliant. We don't know what we don't know. And that's something I really live by now. Like you don't know what you don't know. And when you know it, you feel like you've always known it. So having this allocation of time, having this allocation of information, having the time every day to read or to take in a podcast, not Clubhouse, actually a podcast or reading, specific time with a specific person. I'll listen to Joe Rogan for an hour. I will listen to a millionaire for an hour. I'll listen to someone in business for an hour. Clubhouse is great, but we're getting a huge amount, like a buffet of information, which can actually become unsettling sometimes. Yeah. By listening to one person who you are inspired by, mirror those that inspire you. So I now look for people that will inspire me. I look for lessons from people that have overcome more than me, because there's a lot that have. And it really gives me a real good bit of perspective. And that takes me to my final point, which is I really do. And I used to think people that said this were absolute arses. I really live a massive life of gratitude. I genuinely do.
Yeah. And I think you've said some amazing points there. You know, being able to write everything down on the whiteboard, being able to actually plan that day and actually take action. I think that's incredibly important, being able to spend some time for yourself. You've mentioned gratitude. And I think the most important thing is that when you're experiencing that anxiety, I'm not sure what to do, you say, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And by overcoming that, it's obviously built that muscle through time, and you're feeding your goodwill to really make it happen.
The power from that is unbelievable in a way. For anyone who suffers, and when we talk about anxiety, I missed one of my best friend's weddings. I was not a speaker. I wasn't a best man. I wasn't even an usher. I just had to turn up, sit in a church and get drunk. And I missed one of my best friend's wedding because of anxiety, which just hit me so hard, quite crippling. So when people talk about anxiety, go, oh, yeah, that's right, you probably did suffer. Like, I really suffered. But here's the problem you've got right now. Anyone who's listening and thinking, I couldn't do it, that's not you. That's your bad wolf. And if you hear something in your voice, if you don't hear in your voice and you hear, you can't do this, right? If you're saying, I can't do it, that's me talking to me. If you hear you can't do it, that's you hearing an echo of someone else talking to you previously. Anytime you hear yourself talking yourself in a third party, you're not hearing yourself. You're hearing things that other people have told you. You're regurgitating echoes. They are not your thoughts. They're noises that are stuck in your head that you've held on to because you feel there's a safety net somewhere to it. Because sometimes we're reassured thinking we're rubbish. Sometimes we feel more comfortable feeling that we're no good because we've set our standard low. Yeah. And that doesn't help us. So we have to change the words that we use. We have to change the dialogue that we've got. And we've got to realize that a lot of the time with the anxiety and with the other stuff in there, it can be your brain protecting you because it's worried that you're going to hurt yourself. Brains don't like change. It doesn't know whether it's good for you or bad for you. It just doesn't like change. So if you want change, you have to go against what your brain thinks because it's not going to like it, even if it is the best thing for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that when we look into the mind, it's there not to help you be happy. It's there to help you survive. So you've got to go against that grain to be able to help you move forward. So for those listening who are getting, hyped up, they're inspired, they want a bit more of David, the sales angel. David, where do they go to understand more about you, your training, your courses? What's the best website or place to go to get a bit more of you?
Instagram.com/the sales angel is the easiest option just because I post on there every day. So a lot of the time with what I do, people go through that. Yeah, I want some help, but I don't really want to pay. And I'm cool with that. Like, it really doesn't bother me. I'm quite happy. So I post every day content on there for you can use within your business. And anyone who wants something for free, they can go to mastersales.club, where there's like a 55-minute lead generation and skill set webinar. Or you can just DM me on any social media. To be frank, there's a lot, but at the moment, I think we live in a great time, but I think a lot of people have really struggled. And I think a lot of the barriers we've all built up have been our own doing over time, and we don't realize that. And I want to help people break through with that. But one thing I would say, I mentioned it earlier, is an app called Tether. It's nothing to do with me, but I found it a really helpful app years ago. But it's a really good men's community for people. You literally can go on, you can talk, you can chat, you can read inspirational stuff from other people what they're going through, and it's a really good support place. It's free. So again, I would like to see other people, especially guys, well, it's for guys, that take a little bit more time for themselves to really take that effort.
Brilliant. Love that. And for those listening, make sure to check David out. If there was one last thing that you would leave our audience with today, what would be that last message?
You really put me on the spot now. I think for most people out there, we said earlier that we only know what we know. A lot of the time out there, we were talking about this earlier, some big secret project I've had going on, but the exposure of knowledge that we have to knowledge is so vast now. We get to see all the information and we're starting to tick it all off on our boxes like we know it, and we don't. Like, we've heard of it, we've been exposed to it. Don't tick it off a box like, yeah, completed it. It's like me reading a manual on flying a helicopter and go, yeah, I can fly. Destiny reckon, Ben, you're not going to want to get in a helicopter just to read the manual, right? Yes. And people are reading base manuals. People are seeing someone post a quote and feeling like they know that industry. Like, immerse ourselves into stuff. This life that we get is amazing. I'm 41. In my mind, I still feel like I'm 20. And I'm thinking I'll probably be the same when I'm 60. So if we're waiting for some big thing to happen to suddenly become the person that we want to be, it's not. A lot of the stuff we need, it's already a lot of the skills are there that we need. So just work on the stuff you've got and become the person you want. I think
Love that. We'll leave with you're in an information overload, but you're starving of wisdom. Go to David for some wisdom, 100%. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you on the next one. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.